Years ago, I was working in a treatment facility. A young lady walked in and I asked her, "Why don't you tell me about yourself?" And she took this folder and she passed it across the table and said, "Everything you need to know is in here. That's pretty much who I am." So I opened up this file and I began to read. It was a file filled with a lot of painful memories, a lot of terrible events that had taken place in this girl's life. All kinds of things, again, that had been done to her, things that she had taken part in that had led to this very moment, to this very conversation. So I looked up and I asked her again, "Why don't you tell me about yourself?" And she said, "Whatever that file says is who I am. That is me." And I think in the years since that conversation, I've wondered, is that what we think about ourselves when we think of questions like, who am I? How do I identify myself and how do I make sense of this life that I have? I wonder if at times we think, you know who I am? I'm the sum of everything that's ever happened to me and everything that I've ever done. That's who I am, and that's what I have to wade through to try to figure out how to tell someone who I am. So we say, this is who we are. So are we the sum of all the things that we've ever done and all that's ever happened to us? Is that really what our identity is? In Christianity, we would say no. And the immediate question to why would we say something different is that God informs us of who we are more than anything else. And so it makes us go, okay, so who do we say God is? And this is the tricky part. Our picture of God will begin to inform who we are. So how we think about God informs our identity and the thoughts that we have about ourselves. So we read this in the book of Colossians. It says, the Son, talking about Jesus, is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For in him all things were created, things in heaven and on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or powers or rulers or authorities. All things have been created through him and for him. All things. You and I were created through him and for him. He is before all things, and in him all things hold together. And he is the head, the body of the church. He is the beginning and the firstborn from among the dead, so that in everything he might have supremacy. For God was pleased to have all his fullness dwell in him, in Jesus, and through him to reconcile to himself all things, whether things on the earth or things in heaven, by making peace through his blood shed on the cross. So the way that you and I think about ourselves is directly affected by really what we think about God. The challenge for us sometimes is to always be reaching for a bigger picture of God. So just a verse or two before we read about this gigantic picture of Jesus and just how huge that he is, the book of Colossians says, "For he has rescued us from the dominion of darkness and brought us into the kingdom of the Son that he loves, in whom we have redemption, the forgiveness of sins." And this is where the bigness of God and who God is and who Jesus is affects how we think about ourselves and how we think about our identity, because we say, look how huge this God is. Look how big he is, how he sustains everything that we don't see and all the things that we do see, and how he's created all this stuff. And in his bigness, he's been concerned for you and I. So much so that he rescued us from all the darkness that plagues our life. things that we do, and things that have been done to us. So as you think about the answer to the question, who you are, I pray that at the same exact time you would think about the question, who is God? What's my picture of God? Because the picture of God that we get in the book of Colossians is huge. And it's good and it's amazing. And so I pray as you think about your identity and your purpose and why you're here, that you would see this beautiful picture of God in Jesus, that he has rescued you and I from being the sum of all that's ever been done to us and all that we've ever done, to be something so much more in a relationship with him.